Hey, I had a question from a viewer about the current events in Ukraine.
Hey, Ksenia, quick question for you. Fedorov, why exactly was he fired? I mean, I did a whole video on the guy and I still don't know.
Well, great question, why? And I will answer it. But I think the more important question is how seriously Ukrainians are taking it. You know, I've been watching videos from Kyiv and reading my friends and colleagues' posts these past days, and I can tell you that the protests are unprecedented. We all know that Ukrainians do know how to protest, how to start revolutions, and how to end them successfully. But this is another level of responsibility that Ukrainian society is showing us. Look at these videos. Several days of mass protests all over Ukraine against the firing of a minister. I can't recall anything like this in Ukrainian history when people rallied not for a president, not over some historic decision, but for a minister. It was almost impossible to imagine. And all this during wartime, when people are exhausted by daily bombings, economic problems, and simply by living like this for almost 5 years. So, again, unprecedented. There are a lot of people there. Those who are on the ground say that at times it's simply impossible to squeeze through the crowds. Most of them are young people, but there are also many veterans. One detail that really impressed me: one Ukrainian news outlet, United 24 Media, stopped publishing news for a day. It temporarily suspended its coverage because its journalists, editors, producers, social media team joined the protest over Fedorov's dismissal. You might disagree with this decision, but it shows just how seriously people are taking this. They say that despite the names on the signs, people came out not for individuals, but for principles. Besides the slogans with names, three specific messages appear most often on the signs: asymmetric warfare, technology instead of Soviet style archaic thinking, and saving lives, transparent decision making and open communication, and Russia's reaction as a criteria for whether decisions are right or wrong. In Russia, Z bloggers praised this decision. So, why did Zelenskyy fire Fedorov? The main reasons reported are: first, the conflict with Syrskyi. Zelenskyy reportedly said he could no longer tolerate the constant conflict between the defense minister and the commander in chief, with both sides accusing each other of blocking operations and mismanaging military support. Second, the mobilization reform. Zelenskyy was said to believe that Fedorov had not delivered the promised reform of the mobilization system, which several outlets describe as a major factor behind the dismissal. But here is the thing. People say that the mobilization crisis is not really about the lack of people. It's more about trust. In a democratic country, people make enormous sacrifices only when they trust the institutions asking them to do so. Many protesters saw Fedorov as someone who was trying to rebuild that trust. That's why, for them, this dismissal is about much more than one official. Third, disputes over procurement and military priorities. Reports say Fedorov favored tech-driven, centralized decision-making, while the military wanted different weapons and faster responses to battlefield needs. That mismatch became a recurring source of friction. But there are actually other factors that have also been mentioned by different analysts, journalists, and bloggers. Some reports say influential groups in Ukraine's defense industry were unhappy with reforms that reduced their access to contracts. And another point: several analysts and commentators suggested that Fedorov's rising profile may have irritated parts of Zelenskyy's inner circle, and maybe Zelenskyy himself. There is a segment of Ukrainian society that believes Zelenskyy, as a former actor and celebrity, is a narcissist and can't stand seeing other people become too popular. I heard similar opinions during his conflict with Zaluzhny. Another interesting detail about the protests. Do you know why people are holding handmade cardboard signs instead of polished banners? The name Cardboard Revolution was first attached to the 2025 anti-corruption protests when crowds across Ukrainian cities used cardboard placards. Several reports say these signs symbolized that this was a genuine bottom-up youth-led movement, not a party campaign or a staged political event. Many people in Ukraine believe Zelensky's decision was one of his worst and that it will cost Ukraine dearly. And I also know that Ukrainians never back down. I can't even imagine this kind of protest happening in Russia. Can you imagine this? Ukrainians will keep protesting until they are heard. The mood is not very optimistic, that's true, but this isn't something that just going to disappear on its own.